Good afternoon, man, and welcome to this finally Friday edition of the Outhouse show, man. Hope you guys are enjoying, staying cool wherever you are. Some of you not so much, much like my guest this afternoon. I know everybody remembers the band. They've really always stayed active, whether you knew that or not. You should know that. The band I'm speaking of course, is Earshot. Man, had some really huge success in the early 2000s. I remember it vividly. And my guest this afternoon, of course, vocalist from the band is Mr. Will Martin. Welcome to the show.
Greetings, Chris. Thanks for having me on, bud.
Oh, dude, my pleasure. And, I was going through, and I always like to sort of refresh my memory of things and go back. And, because 2002, like, you're the first major release you guys had. That's like an eternity ago, even though it doesn't seem like it, but it was. I really forgot. The stuff was so good. But you guys have really never let up. So I don't want to be sounding like, well, it was really good then. What's going on now? That being said, let's fast forward, because there were a lot of stuff that came out in the early 2000s, and you guys had huge success, and we talked a little bit off air, of course, how the whole industry has changed, but give everybody kind of a rundown of kind of what's been going on since. And I know anybody that doesn't know, you have stayed active. I mean, all you have to do is look at the timeline, and you guys have stayed active, but what's been going on?
Well, we've stayed sort of active, and as you were alluding to a moment ago, when we were talking off air, things much like it did for you, things changed as a whole, for artists, when streaming started to become more of a mainstream thing, no pun intended, and that coupled with, we had some issues. We went through some label changes. We left Warner Brothers after putting out Letting Go and 2, and then we went over to Universal Indigo. We did another deal, and we put out The Silver Lining there. And then after that, man, I just, it just became harder and harder to sustain, any kind of momentum. And also, I wasn't in a very good place mentally and emotionally, and I just wasn't as passionate about, creating and putting out and going out and touring as I was, when we first came out. So I needed to, for my own sanity and sake, I needed to take a step back. So in 2011, 12-ish, somewhere in there, is when I kind of pulled the plug on everything and needed to take a hiatus for a little while. And I did put out a handful of songs. I guess you could consider them B-sides. They were songs that never really made, any of the 3 albums that we'd put out, called The Aftermath. And ever since then, just have been kind of, sort of dormant and just kind of watching things unfold within our industry, and, watching some of the newer bands come out, watching a lot of the bands that we're friends with, continue to kind of fight and survive and struggle out there that are, luckily a lot of them are still around as well. So it wasn't until 2017, 18 when I met Mikey and our then guitarist Andy, was when we sort of started to contemplate, reactivating things again. And it actually happened from a venue in Las Vegas called Counts Vamped, which is one of the stops that we're making on this tour we have upcoming in the fall. They kept asking us, if we were available to play a show, and I just kept putting it off because we didn't have a band at that point. And but it was that show that caused us to start thinking about, getting back on the horse again, getting back out there, and so that's what happened. And the rest has kind of led up to where we're at now, and with a series of, we've added John to the band and Aaron as well, and we've just got back from recording a brand new album that's due out early next year at some point, probably in the mid-spring time frame. And we have as I said, we have a fall tour coming up this fall. So it's been kind of a pretty fast snowball effect since we put this all back together. But the journey continues, as it were.
Absolutely, and of course, when we wrap this up, the latest song you guys is what You and I know there's a unplugged Tongue Tied song, but You and I is the current single, right? I mean, that's kind of the one that's being played around.
So You and I is the single previous to this one. Okay. The one that's actually out now is called Unraveling.
Okay.
Which is the brand newest one. But You and I was the one just before that. And that's kind of what we've been doing, since the pandemic. We were scheduled to go and record a new full-length album just before the pandemic hit. And then, of course, the pandemic hit. And because we all live, in different parts of the country.
Right.
It was, the challenge for us was, getting all together to make an album. So what we decided to do instead was just, write and record singles, at least that way we could kind of pass songs, to one another over the interwebs. And since we all have our own recording studios, and so we did Uninvited, which for people that are fans of the original, or even for people that aren't fans of the original, I think we did a really, really great job, if I do say so myself, with that single. It's probably one of our most songs that we've released on our own. But since then, we've just released, a handful of singles since then, with Unraveling being our latest one. And now as I said, we just got back from Florida, where we just finished up recording all the basic tracks for an 11-song album that we'll put out next year. So, and it's really, really great. And I'd be lying to you if I said it sucked.
So you're saying that the new single, what is Unraveling? Is that what it is, right? The latest?
Yep.
Okay. Well, we'll throw that one on. And since I made mention of the other one, we'll just throw that one on as well.
Might as well.
So I mean, I don't mean to sound this. So you find yourself, you come back all this time. A lot of guys aren't making. Well, there are making. A lot of guys are opting not to do, full length albums because of cost anymore. There's a lot of guys out doing EPs. I mean, is that something you guys thought about? Like doing it that way? And then there's some guys that are just like I'm good friends with the guys in Veer Union, and of course they're making. He's got money coming in other kinds of producing and things like that. But really, that's all they do. They'll put out a single.
Right. I think it depends on where you're at. In your career. For us, like for a long time, if anyone listening has read any of my interviews, over the years, I've, consistently championed singles, and only because I feel like, that's the attention span and time that people have nowadays. It's not like, people that I know of, at least anyways, sit and listen into an entire record and digest it like you used to, when you had artwork to look at, and,
right?
All the intersleeve stuff. But we went ahead and did a full-length record this time for a couple of reasons. Aaron is he likes recording traditional albums. That's what he loves to do. And not that I don't love it. I argue and debate about whether it's necessary to do. But I think for us, it makes sense to put out full-length albums because we've already done that before. And we, already have, a nice legion of fans that already are familiar with the band and our music. So I think they're more, open-armed about getting 11 songs and listening to them versus if we were a band that nobody heard of,
right,
you're probably only going to get maybe a song or two of their attention in time to check it out to see if they even like it. So I think it just depends, really.
Right. Now, what do you think of, I mean, just curiosity, because we talked a little bit, obviously, before we got on. So fans today, I got to have my opinion. You kind of touched about, CDs and the product. There's a huge difference between fans today and fans now, right? There's not the same commitment to a band as there used to be. Is that something you see? I mean, I'm not talking about Earshot fans. I'm not talking about those. I'm just trying to, in the world, trying to create new fans. It's different. When you say it's completely different now.
It is, and I think that has to do a lot with the fact that there's so much music available out there for people to listen to, which which is a really good thing. You know, the gates were sort of unlocked, you know, with the advent of streaming, and done away with the days of, you know, labels being the gatekeepers of, you know, who got, you know, some of the spotlight and who didn't. And now everybody can, you know, and there's various ways doing that. Some people do it with good music. Some people do it with theatrics. Some do it with both, rarely. Mm-hmm. And I think that, you know, we're in a time now where, you know, I think people are really, really busy. They have a lot of things going on in life. We all do too. And so I get it. They have a limited time to check things out. And I think it's just a different space where you have to, I think like any other time before now, even, like, you have to be doing things that are compelling to people. Otherwise they'll move on. And, I think I might have answered the question.
No, and that was good. It's kind of where I was wanting to see, because I mean, I definitely have an opinion about, you know, the fans don't have the same commitment to music like they used to, and that's not. I'm not knocking fans. I'm not knocking, but it's very much, and how I kind of compare it. It's very much an ADHD society, which makes in that world where you've got TikTok and all these things because they want it quick, they want to digest it fast, and they want to move on. And that's where it makes it hard for a lot of artists, like, you know, the established artists that, you know, have that fan base, you know, you and there's so many. I mean, you could list them on and on. But, you know, a lot of the bands that came into the late 2000s, the mid-late 2000s, not kind of where we're at now. I mean, that's what you're seeing, you know. That's why there's this, you know, you see these other bands that do so well, you know, like I went to Pantera a couple nights ago. Yeah. And of course it's Pantera, so it's going to draw. But, you know, the younger fan base, you know, they're not going to necessarily generate the younger one, and they're going to go. And I think that's kind of what I was getting at. So you answered the question. It's just there's not the same like I can't wait for every Earshot album. I can't wait for all this stuff. And to me, not to sound like an old guy, that's really what made a lot of the bands their success. Yes, the radio play. Yes, you got to see them live. But there wasn't that, man, these are my boys. I can't wait to see, you know what I mean? And that just changed. And that's society, so I'm not really down on it, but that's kind of was my thing on it. It's just there's not the same commitment. You're very fine unless you're Taylor Swift. You know,
I think it's really simply that there's a lot of things I think that people like and love. And I think, you know, there's only so many shows that people can afford to go to. There's only so many T-shirts they can afford to go to shows and buy. Like, so I think, you know, unfortunately especially now with, you know, all these talks of recessions and all these things, I think people are, you know, holding on to their money a little bit tighter, which I don't blame them for. And, you know, as we all know, historically, entertainment is always the first thing to get chopped from the budget for people. So,
and we talked about COVID, and anybody just joining the show, of course, Will Martin, vocalist, Earshot. They got new stuff coming out next year, new album next year. We're going to play Unraveled, and it's Unraveled, right? I'm thinking in my head, is it Unraveled?
Unraveling.
ING, Chris, and you and I. But, you know, I remember, you know, when COVID, you know, we shut everything down, and I don't think this helped artists either. And then everything started to kind of open back up, and artists were being able to get on the road, and, you know, everybody had sat idle, and so nobody had really been making any money. But then the worst thing happened. Everybody went on tour, and that didn't help anything either. I don't really know where I'm going with that, but I mean, when we're talking about, you know, bands and going to see them, I think that's my point, making sure there's support. But it was so hard for everybody, like, oh shit, who do I go see? Because everyone's out. You know, but anyway, I'll get off that somewhat. So what do you guys have planned? So you've got you're out on the road. You're doing that. You got an album coming out next year.
The tour starts this fall. It starts in Costa Mesa, just down the street from where I am in Los Angeles in California on the 28th. Then we go down to San Diego, head over to Las Vegas, then we cut over to Texas, then we do a bunch of dates within Texas, then we go over to Florida, do a few shows there, then we start heading up the East Coast, Virginia Beach, Pennsylvania, New Jersey, and home. So it's a 3-week run, little limited run. We do expect to be out next year. We don't know when exactly. A lot of it depends on what happens on this tour for next year. But we are planning, to do something both for the new album that we have coming out that we haven't yet. So next year is the 20th anniversary of our second record, Two, which has the big single Wait.
Right, Wait.
That everybody still, to this day, just plays the shit out of. So, and we're extremely grateful and humbled for that. So we might be out a little more next year. Like I said, it just depends how this next tour that we're about to start on this fall goes.
Right. How's and I know this is kind of probably early, but how has the reception been, with radio fans hearing you guys sort of like, really cranking it up? I want to mention to people because you guys never really went away. You were still kind of doing things. You did go kind of idle there for a bit, but how has it been now that the machine's starting to sort of crank up a bit?
Well, it's definitely gotten a lot faster paced and a lot busier, and we're not even, the machine's not all the way cranked up, but as we start to finalize the team of people that we have working with us, which have all been nothing short of amazing and super helpful, and we're just stoked to have the team of people that we have that believe in the band and believe in us and love what we're doing and love what our plans are and how important this is to us and to our fans. It just seems like every day or every week, the intensity just keeps getting, turned up a little more. So I'm glad that, it wasn't an explosion out of the gate.
Sure.
Because then that means it fizzles out fast, right?
Right.
So I really like the slow burn and build here, because I think that means that, this will be a more lasting thing than just a quick flash. Like, here, we're going to do this, and then bye,
right.
See you later.
Right.
We plan on sticking around for a long while and and not going anywhere. So we're really, working to set it up moving forward. And, really, since we are now our own independent label now, we're having to sort of operate, as such while being artists, which is why luckily we have grown-ups in the room on our team that,
right.
Can kind of,
right.
help us manage things a little bit. So everything's going great so far, and I'm just really stoked at where everything sits right now.
Dude, that's awesome. And I want to thank you for spending a bit of time this afternoon on this Friday. Definitely look forward to seeing you on the road. Depends on how close you get. I'm sort of in that southern Missouri area of the country, but, we'll see what happens when you guys head out. You know what I mean?
We won't be on this next run.
Right.
We won't be quite making it up there, but we will most certainly be out that way next year. And hopefully, we have two bands that are from that area out with us on that tour. We have 1,000 Years Wide and Machines, which are both really great bands.
Yeah, great bands. Yeah, great bands. So that's awesome. Yeah.
Really hoping, that our fans turn out early to check them out as well and give them some love.
Awesome. Well, brother, man, thank you so much for joining. And as, of course, we wrap this up, which one do you want me to throw on first? You and I are unraveling. Which one should I do first?
Oh, man, such a tough call. That's like trying to tell you which kid is my favorite. I don't have kids, but, you know what? I flip a coin. They're both great.
Okay,
and,
hold on.
If you're going to play both of them anyway, then I guess it doesn't really matter.
I guess it doesn't matter. Okay. I'll surprise everybody. Actually, let's do this. Well, we'll play You and I, since that was the single. You know what? No, we won't do that. We'll play Unraveling first because that's the latest single. Then people can really hear it, jam on it, get into it. And, brother man, Will, I want to thank you for joining me on the show this afternoon, man. It's been a pleasure. Man, I wish you guys all the major success getting back out there. It's cool that, it's good to see bands kind of, getting back out there, getting the machine rolling, and look forward to seeing you road. Be sure and check out earshotband.com. I know you've got a YouTube channel. You're on the Facebook. I'm sure you're everywhere, right?
Yep, all the handles are all the same, Earshot Band. So facebook.com/Earshot Band, Twitter/Earshot Band, YouTube, Earshot Band. It's all Earshot Band.
There you go. Check it out today. And, of course, this is Unraveling from Earshot on the Outhouse Show on Rock Rage Radio.